Welcome to Layers Licensing and Games podcast. We're going to have an awesome intro for this month's podcast, just quietly. Um, my name is Mitch, joined once again by Ratchet. Hello, Ratchet. How are you? You've already told me you're good. Yeah.
Hey Mitch, I'm good for the fifth time. If anyone hasn't guessed, we have had to record this intro a few times now.
And I'm not even going to make any jokes about Jesse Aglet from Rubin. I'm just going to introduce Jesse Rubin from Aglet, Senior Partnerships Director. Welcome, Jesse. Thanks for joining us today.
Happy to be here. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
First of all, talk to us a little bit about Aglet. Give us a bit of an intro. And if you could explain maybe what makes you different from other games, that would be helpful as well.
Yeah, sure. So Aglet is a geolocation-based sneaker and apparel collecting game, as you alluded to. Very simply put, it's kind of like Pokemon Go for sneaker and apparel collecting. So it's a mobile game. You download the app, you create an avatar, and I think one of the things that really differentiates us from the other games in the marketplace is we pride ourselves on being a game of brands. One of our co-founders, Ryan Mullins, he worked at Adidas. He headed up innovation for them. And while he was there, it kind of dawned on him that gaming mechanics are eating the world. And kind of as a result of gaming mechanics eating the world, a lot of the gaming mechanics are skewed out of favor of the true consumers of the culture. So whether that's trying to get a very coveted pair of sneakers on the sneakers app or confirmed for Adidas, or trying to get a very coveted restaurant reservation, unless you, one, are super connected and can get the inside track on certain things, or two, you can afford to buy something on the secondary market at a pretty considerable markup. Just a lot of people are kind of boxed out of really participating in the culture. So taking all of that into consideration, his thought was, how can you create this game where for a lot of consumers, you're getting these digital products for the first time? How can you explore the world around you, use these map-based game mechanics in order to, one, interact and play the brands that you love, and two, also have the opportunity to earn physical goods tied to your digital engagement as opposed to how much money you have in your wallet. So, I'm in LA right now. Based on where I am in the world, there's dynamic stash spots that you'll see on the map. And basically you're incentivized to walk around the world around you. And the more, when we do certain activations with brands, the more you interact with a brand, whether that's Adidas, PUMA. We just did a big thing with Man City in Japan and Korea, which I know we'll get into. But the more that you play the brand in this digital world, the more opportunities you have to get physical goods or discounted experiences as a result of your digital patronage. So.
Awesome. You did a far better job explaining Aglet than I ever could. So very well done. And talk to me a little bit about how you kind of straddle the line between Web 2 and Web 3, because I know the game, you can play it as just a Web 2 experience if you want to, but there's also a collectibles element to it as well, right?
Yeah, totally. So we very much pride ourselves on being a Web 2.5 platform. So, I don't think that I'm speaking out of turn when I say that, or out of turn rather, that crypto is inherently very intimidating. And, especially considering where the market was a year and a half ago, we didn't want to alienate any of our players that aren't, super into crypto or just want to have a fun, casual game experience. So, we have NFTs. A lot of the partnerships we do, there's NFTs as like the most elevated asset class in the game. But the thing that's interesting, I mean, we're partners with Immutable, and all of our NFTs are on the Immutable blockchain, but they live within the Aglet ecosystem. You can't take them out and sell them on OpenSea or other third-party platforms. So it's really just, and obviously within the blockchain code, there's certain things that you have access to as a result of owning it, depending on the partner or the certain activation we're doing in a given month. But at the end of the day, there's no arbitrage opportunities to really exploit by buying an NFT. It's really just for those players that are more crypto curious, I suppose. They have an opportunity to collect NFTs. They can flex them in the game, but there isn't really that opportunity to go sell it on a third party marketplace, which for us works well because a lot of brands are still a little reticent to fully embrace the Web3 ecosystem. So definitely love
Right.
straddling that Web 2.5
Mm.
line.
Web 2.5 for the crypto curious. Love it.
That's, I mean, it's super interesting. Like, I think by doing that, like you said, you can't take it outside the ecosystem. I'm guessing you reduce some of the purely like investor speculator types that are that are not there for the game or for the community. Like, what do your players look like on average? Are they more sneakerhead? Are they more like gamer AR fan? Are they more Web3 fan? Like, what do they look like in general, and why do they come to Aglet? Like, I know you mentioned earlier, like one of the founders came from a brand background at Adidas, saying like understanding the sneakerhead community, like that whole collection aspect, the hype aspect. Like, is that the main driving factor, or is it some of these other things like the AR or Web3 side of things?
Yeah, so I mean, about a year and a half ago, we blew up in Japan. We were the number one app in Japan for like 2 weeks, bigger than Niantic, Google, Facebook, etc. And we did see a lot of these. We saw a lot of the quote unquote crypto bros coming in that were looking to buy NFTs, and were pretty bummed when they learned that you can't take them off the platform and seek arbitrage money making opportunities. But at our core, our audience is, I mean, we skew heavily male. We're pursuing a lot more partnerships to get more females in the game, but we skew more male. Definitely, I mean, we've done some polling, and I mean, 50% of our users identify as fans of streetwear, vintage clothing, just general consumers of haute couture and things like that. And they spend a lot of their disposable income on said things. So I think about like 50% of our user base is 18 to 34. So I think it really is this cohort of people that might be gaming curious, but also at the same point they're avid consumers of streetwear. They grew up with Supreme and Nike drops and things like that, and maybe they've been displaced. Maybe they're looking for new ways to express themselves digitally with also the opportunity to get physical goods and just kind of explore this new gaming way of playing brands. But yeah, generally I would say for us, we've had a spell in which we had a lot more crypto centric people, but where we are right now, it's much more of like an everyday general consumer who likes games, but I think that fashion and clothing and just kind of how we're doing this new way of expressing yourself in a digital world with the opportunity for physical goods, this gamified commerce experience, I think is what kind of intrigues them.
Right. Um, and I think you kind of answered this in the intro when you kind of spoke about one of the founders coming from Adidas, but like it feels like Aglet was kind of it was built for brand partnerships, right? So was it always built with wanting to collaborate with brands in mind, or like when did you decide on doing your first brand collaboration?
Yeah, so in full transparency, I've been with the company for a little over a year, like a year and 3 months or so. We've been around for 3.5 years, and within our first couple months of being a stand-up company, we worked with Gucci, and that was one of our first partnerships, and we did a Gucci drop in the game. And I think that for us, with a lot of these brands, they're not obviously super gaming centric. In the last couple of years, they've added metaverse divisions and things that are more catered towards expressing brands in a gaming ecosystem. But for a lot of brands that are looking to just kind of dip their toe into this world, and I think the Web 2.5 stuff really plays nicely into that. But I think that the name of the game has always been like, let's tell stories, let's explain why said brand, whether you're a blue chip brand like an Adidas or a Puma, or you're some kind of small brick and mortar shop in Scandinavia that has a big fan following and is known as like a, as one of the best buys in all the world. Like, how can we tell that story? How can we, use our map based play to advertise and, get people activating around that, and by playing that brand, whether it's big or small, create these cool opportunities to get a, get some type of status, get some exposure to it. And I think obviously it's tough because it requires outreach all across the globe. I work across a lot of time zones with businesses both big and small, which poses their own interesting pain points. But yeah, it's always, I think the thought has always been this is a game of brands. We have our own Aglet endemic brand as well, which we're trying to tell the story of and generate excitement of. And we've created physical products. We've dropped about three Aglet One silhouettes, which, you know, can share some images with at some point. But yeah, it's always been a game of brands. And, what we found, at least in the year and a half that I've been here, is that Aglet is a really meaningful flavortizing platform. Just because if you think about like these AAA titles, in Tony Hawk or in Fortnite, sure, you could be wearing a skin or you could be wearing a pair of shoes in the game, but at the end of the day, there's no real storytelling around those
Mm.
items. There aren't a lot of games out there where when we do an activation with a brand like a Man City or a Puma or Adidas, we really kind of double down on why we're doing this, why this is significant, and create actual gameplay tied to the brand itself. So, um, yeah, I know I'm being a bit redundant, but definitely a game of brands where we're storytelling and creating these unique consumer opportunities is kind of always been the name of the game for us.
And do you think that like being AR based, has that actually, do you think that that helps in telling the story of these brands, like compared to, if you're a like a AAA console game like a Fortnite, for example? Do you think there's that actually gives you a leg up, or?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think especially considering the map-based nature of it, it further contextualizes it. So if we're doing something with an Adidas or Gucci, we can create actual map-based stash spots where the Gucci store is on Fifth Avenue in New York or in Tokyo, and basically we can create the gameplay around these locations that are meaningful to the brands. And so we can basically, with the right storytelling, get people walking around, checking into the Gucci store, checking into XYZ place, and really interacting with the brands. And, we have a buy IRL button in the game as well. So if you're wearing a certain pair of trainers or a shirt, we can directly link you out to the physical product. But if there's some map based gameplay where, you check into some location and you check into a bunch of different locations across the map, you get some type of prize. That definitely, I mean, it's additional marketing opportunities. It's just a way to keep people thinking about the brand, keep it top of mind. And I think that that is certainly an interesting way for consumers. Like as I said, the game is really centered around the
Mhm.
brands. So as a result of that, it's just, the brands are really front of mind. And I think that that's why a lot of brands like working with us. Like there aren't a lot of platforms out there where they are the true sole focus of a given activation or event that we're doing in game.
Yeah, absolutely. And like with those partnerships that you do, are they? I'm always curious to understand how a game developer or whoever it is that's working with a brand or a licensed IP, like how do they determine that they want to work with that brand or that IP? So is that something that you sit around internally at Aglet and you say we want to work with Gucci, for example, or is that something that's player driven? And how do you evaluate each brand and say, we want to go after that and we want to work with them?
Yeah, it's a great question, Mitch. And I think for us, so we have a really killer community within Aglet. We have a Discord that's very lively, and our support team is the best in the business. And they're very quick to cycle back feedback about things that the players like, that they don't like. And to the best of my abilities, I try to, using that feedback, go to brands and see if we can spin up partnerships. I mean, you know, selfishly, I'm a major consumer of fashion, streetwear. I call myself a recovering hype beast because when I was 13 years old, I was big on buying and selling shoes all over New York. But so a lot of that kind of influences kind of how I think about brands because I keep up on the trades and I feel like I have a good read of what's hot, what's not. But at the end of the day, as I get older, I'm less and less the target consumer. So we try to kind of lean on what our user base is really keen to play in the game, keen to have an opportunity to get physical products or unique physical experiences tied to those. So, it's kind of a mix of both. I mean, I have an exhaustive spreadsheet of like every brand across the world, across different verticals. But, for example, our Discord recently was talking about how they want to have more K Swiss in the
Mm.
game. And because of that, I'm going to go and try to find a partner at K Swiss, see if we can find a way to work together. And I guess the second part of your question is for us, you know, especially considering where the gaming market is right now, we feel like, doing a partnership where we just drop a sneaker or apparel in the game isn't the most meaningful way for a brand to express themselves in Aglet. We really want to ensure that, they trust that we can story tell together and create some quests and challenges tied to the brand in order to get people outside exploring the world around them. Maybe, outside of just going to brick and mortar stores, they go to a park or they go to a museum or something and check in with a brand there. Like we're just trying to create these, I guess an excuse isn't the right word, but these reasons for people to go out, explore the world around them, interact with these brands and have fun doing so. So as long as the brand is down to clown, as we like to say, and is willing to, get a little uncomfortable in this digital world, just trust that we're not going to, get too crazy with it. I think that's really what we hope for with these partnerships. Just, someone that isn't a little bit too rigid. Like at the end of the day, we have an amazing design team and we don't take any creative liberties with designs, especially with
Yeah.
partners, but we just want to ensure that we're able to really lean into the step-based play, mission, quest challenges, things of that nature. And then from there, we can obviously do drops and things like that, but we don't see that as like particularly meaningful of an
Yeah.
activation
It's
for a
more about
brand.
the story and how you kind of integrate them into the world. So it sounds like audience, like how you figure out what your players are looking for. It's more qualitative, right? Like you're kind of just monitoring the Discord, you're seeing what they're talking about. It's not like you have an insane amount of data or surveys or things that you've run. It's really just like you keeping your finger on the community pulse.
Yeah, totally, Mitch. And I mean, I think at some point, like, we're still a growing startup. I would love to get to a place where it's more data driven and, just a little bit more, just a little bit more numbers based. But at the same time, like, I think that especially the fashion kind of consumer space at a whole is really just trend forecasting and kind of having a good understanding of where the kids are going and kind of making informed decisions there. So,
Yeah.
it'll always be a little bit more art than science, and that's fine for us,
Yeah.
at least for now.
Yeah.
It's a good way to put it. I'd love to ask a little bit more about like you've said that storytelling is important. Like it's not just about shoe drops. I think for someone listening to this, if they're not familiar with Aglet or if they're not familiar with the concept of what a brand story might look like, it'd be really good to talk about like what does a partnership look like? What does a brand collaboration look like? I know that you recently, in July, partnered with both Man City and Puma for I think a treasure hunt. Can you kind of visually step us through what that was and like what did that experience feel and look like for a player, just so that we can kind of understand like the nature of a collaboration?
Yeah, totally. So first and foremost, I mean, working with Puma and Man City was a dream for us. I mean, Man City, as I'm sure you know, is the most successful soccer club, football club in the world right now. They just won the treble, and um, as I think I've alluded to, we have a pretty sizable audience in Japan. And luckily enough, Man City was doing their Asia exhibition in Tokyo and Seoul this summer in July. So it seemed like a good opportunity for us to use our Aglet platform to really explain to our Japanese audience who might not know necessarily what Man City is, as crazy as that sounds, kind of why Man City is so meaningful in the global cultural zeitgeist and just sports arena, but also, how can we further sweeten the pot and create these experiences using the map, using these exhibition matches to get people excited about it and really express their fandom about Man City. So it was kind of twofold what we did with them on a more local level. So they played three matches in Asia, two in Tokyo, one in Seoul. For the local matches, we had some branded stash spots in key locations across Tokyo and Korea. So they were releasing their third kit simultaneously with the exhibition matches. So we highlighted the PUMA store. We highlighted another soccer retailer out in Asia, and we had a bunch of branded stash spots near the stadiums in which they were playing. And so there was the more that you checked into these Man City branded stash spots and also Puma stash spots as well, you had an opportunity to earn rare assets in the game. So, initially you get a pair of Man City socks, and as you continue to check in and interact with Man City in the game, you would get kits, shorts, etc. At Puma locations, they released a new shoe. You were able to get a new pair of trainers. And to further generate excitement, we created a step challenge where you had to be wearing these Man City branded trainers in the game. And basically, it was a step competition for a week. And as you accrued steps in these Puma trainers, you got in game rewards. So at 10,000 steps, you got a certain digital asset. As you got 25,000 steps, you got an additional, more rare asset. But the real kicker was that if you got 100,000 steps plus throughout that week, you were entered into a raffle to get a free signed Man City football jersey. So, you know, uh, I mean, yeah, people love free things, especially free signed memorabilia, especially if you're a citizen. So that definitely caused a lot of hysteria. And kind of in addition to that, we also had a NFT that it was a location based NFT that you can only get at the stadium during the matches. So we had a lot of people on our Discord on Twitter saying, like, I've never gone to a soccer game before. Honestly, I don't even know what Man City is. I just thought the color of blue on their jerseys was cute. Like, checking into the Tokyo National Stadium, getting this NFT, and using this as an experience to kind of dip their toe further into this world and get an understanding of what Man City is was super cool. And then on a global level, just so everyone could participate, we did, a Man City drop in the game with trainers, kits, Puma sneakers, gallery items, things of that nature. So we tried to make it a global experience so all of our user base could enjoy and get a better understanding of what Man City is. And then on a more localized level for the people that were there, creating these really unique experiences where you had the opportunity to win free jerseys, things like that. So it was super successful. It was a lot of fun, and we're definitely trying to replicate it for the coming season with them as well.
So super cool, and I think it's interesting that like you've been able to definitely showcase the fact that not everyone in the world knows who or what Man City is, and like you can take new fans, right? You've got your own existing players and introduce them to a club, and I think that's important for the brand, right? It's not just about the licensing and the advertising; it's actually about the fan engagement, the audience that you're building. But in terms of results, like what can you share? I know specifics are hard, but like talk us through like some of the key kind of trends or numbers, if you can, around like yeah, whether that's engagement or downloads or purchases, anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll keep it a bit high level just because don't want to get in trouble with Man City's legal
Totally,
team or
totally.
anything like that. But I mean, we generated tens of thousands of people checking into Tokyo National
Hmm.
Stadium, the Seoul Stadium, where you know the Tokyo or the Seoul match was held. So we, you know, there's one in the deck that we share with partners. We kind of have a an image of what Tokyo National Stadium looked like before the activation, and then what it looked like, during and after, and it's just, it looks like a an invasion, like basically uh, there's just throngs and throngs of people kind of swarming all over the stadium, and based on our data, that was thousands upon thousands of people checking in. And speaking candidly, we kind of got off to a late start. We announced the partnership very close to the actual match, so considering certain time constraints, the fact that we were able to get you know tens of thousands of people who might not necessarily know what Man City was based on just our overall ferocious audience is pretty encouraging and meaningful, which obviously translated to a lot of in-game impressions. I mean, we're big on brand steps, so it's basically the steps taken and a pair of shoes, or while walking in the game wearing certain clothes. And there was, multi millions, 100 millions of brand steps taken in a Puma and Man City gear while this activation took place. So, um, you know, from a digital standpoint, it was super meaningful. From a physical standpoint, it was, really, really encouraging. And considering we did this in a place like Tokyo, where soccer isn't necessarily their main sport, where Man City isn't their, homegrown club, if we did this around the Manchester Derby, or, Man City Arsenal during the Premier League season, and you have signed jerseys as collateral to participate in activations, like, we feel like this could be there could be riots in Manchester and London over an opportunity like this. So it was definitely a very,
Don't give them another reason.
yeah, no more riots. But yeah, it was all in all a very invaluable test. This was really our first foray with a major sports property, and kind of just further underscored our hypothesis that this could be a really meaningful fan engagement tool. And as a result of that, there's a lot of partners we're talking to now about further expanding this and creating additional storytelling with, the big blue chip leagues, in addition to more nascent up and coming leagues as well. So it was an amazing
Super,
experience.
super cool. And I think, as you mentioned, one of the largest sports properties in the world, and one of the largest like sporting goods or clothing brands in the world. Like, what are the takeaways or the key learnings? Like, what do you think you got really right? Because it sounds like it went pretty well. But also, like, what would you change? As you're kind of replicating or trying to do more of this, what's going to be different?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, and more times than not, my team wants to kill me because I bring these partnerships to the table, and you guys know partnerships take a little bit of time to materialize and to execute. So I think for us, especially as we continue to scale as a business and grow and take on more partners simultaneously, we just need to get better at, you know, just planning further ahead. So like we don't have to do something necessarily 2 weeks before a big activation. Like just want to give our team as much runway in order to adequately convey stories. I think that, you know, I think for us, it kind of goes to show that, um, with time, with adequate amounts of time to storytell, we can really create a meaningful activation, whether it's with a Man City, or, we've done things with smaller brands across the globe that have been super impactful. And I think that just this opportunity to earn physical goods tied to digital engagement is really meaningful to partners and to consumers, especially those that might not have an opportunity to go to a Man City match or get a free signed Man City thing otherwise. So the more that we can think of new ways to unlock the map, get people congregating and, just expressing their fandom in unique ways is obviously something that we want to keep further exploring. And I think just giving ourselves that runway, that as we get bigger, as we have, I mean, the kind of the future state of Aglet is like thousands of brands across the world activating at different times. And not the sexiest way to explain it, but just like, Aglet serving as this quasi loyalty reward program where you can get certain discounts or access to certain goods based on your play in game. We just need to give ourselves the time and really look at the calendar and kind of plan ahead. So it was a mad dash. I give Man City and Puma an immense amount of credit. I have the best team in the world. They hate me a lot of the time, but we do a lot of good work, especially when our back's against the wall. But yeah, just it was a mad dash, and just for their to ensure that they don't, you know, go into cardiac arrest or lose all their hair, or just ensure that we give them a little more runway to execute these
You can't
partnerships.
complain when you're collaborating with Man City and Puma, though, right? Like, even if it is a mad dash, it's
Yeah,
the proof's in the pudding. So, um,
Even
yeah,
if the
yeah,
even if
team
the team
dies.
dies, it's a
yeah. You got to pay to
necessary
play.
sacrifice, right? So, sorry,
Exactly. They're like Joan of Arc. They died for a good cause.
sorry to the Aglet team when you watch this.
Yeah.
Curious though, in the future, sort of what collaborations might look like for you. Wondering if you might go beyond, and I guess you already have with City, right? The City collaboration, but collaborating with more than just sneaker brands, right? So I know you mentioned then the future vision is kind of multiple brand activations all around the world going off at once. But do you see a world maybe where you integrate characters or other types of like musicians or celebrities, these type of things that or sneakers or fashion items that might not even exist in real life? Like, is that something that you see happening in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, as I've alluded to, we've found that Aglet drives really meaningful in-game impressions, in-game impressions, physical impressions, interacting with the world for brands. So, you know, considering how expensive it is for brands to market on Facebook or TikTok or things like that, we see Aglet as a very viable solution, for brands that are looking to get into gaming and, are actually looking for deep engagement as opposed to just getting served an ad and, someone ignores it. Like really wearing the brands in game, interacting with it via the map and challenges, buying it in the shop is really, for us, we see as a really meaningful way for brands to. We kind of serve as this top of the funnel engagement tool where you're playing the brand and, um, for a lot of consumers, they're curious, they learn about the brand, and then they ultimately end up buying physical products. So, I mean, we're talking to everyone from consumer goods companies to musicians to famous celebrities, gaming IP property. So anything we could basically sell anything within Aglet, and we can find a function for it. We have a flavortizing deck that is very robust. It's like 20 pages, and I think it just goes to show that you know we can be very we can create bespoke activations for any brand depending on what they're looking to do, and we take a lot of pride in being flexible. So, while we started as kind of the Pokemon Go for sneaker and apparel collecting, the next generation of what Aglet is really going to be anything under the sun. Anyone that's looking to reach an audience in a new way and have their audience try to earn physical goods tied to digital engagement, I think is the name of the game. So, um, yeah, everything from fashion brands to, I mean, we're talking to a bunch of live events companies to tourism boards. Anyone that's looking to get people out and about interacting on a map is a viable potential partner for Aglet.
Yeah.
Sounds like you've had a great kind of track record, right? And now you can kind of like use that to kind of leverage that and open up new avenues and new types of integration. So it's really cool to hear that Aglet story, including some of the bigger wins to date. I think that's a pretty good place to wrap it. I know we've had a couple of internet issues as well, so we'll cut them out. But before we wrap, I know you mentioned early on that as a 13-year-old, you ran around New York buying and selling kicks. I got to ask, and you might have to look it up, but what's the Grail? What's the Grail pair of kicks, and is it a dream or do you own them already?
It's a great question, Ratchet. I mean, they have these Paris Nike SB dunks that now I think are like $100,000 that I really wanted when I was, 13 years old in 2007. But for myself, I mean, I'm a big fan of hip hop. MF Doom, big fan of
Cool.
his, and he did a Nike SB collaboration, which I still have to this day. So I would say the MF Doom Nike Dunk SBs were certainly a grail, and I'm happy that I have them. I still have, as I said, I'm in recovery, so I'm it's hard to fully pass over my transgressions. But I have a pair of Nike SB Huffs that I still have. I've had for like 15 years, but I think the grail at this point, honestly, I'm big into collectibles. Like if I could get a Michael Jordan signed shoe or something like
Yeah.
that would be pretty sweet. But obviously, I mean, I wear a size 9, so just be cool to look at and admire it as opposed to, being down trying to flip stuff.
Well, the way it sounds like it's going at Aglet, I think it won't be too far off between the Michael Jordans or the SB Paris. I think you can take your pick, right?
I
So
hope. I'll take your
really
word
cool
for
to
it. We'll see.
yeah, yeah. Hold me to it. Appreciate the time, Jesse. Mitch, anything else on your end, or should we wrap there?
No, I think that's a good place to wrap.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate the time.
Thank you
Jesse.
guys so much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching the Licensing and Games video series. For more content like this, subscribe to our channel or check us out at layerlicensing.com.